All right, I'm back here with our second guest that I'm interviewing for the Ethlizards. Let me get this right. Ethlizards Portfolio Sub-DAO Council. This is Winterfyre. Before I let him introduce himself, I want to say that I will be interviewing more guests throughout this next week and a half. Artemis has another YouTube channel, and she will be interviewing some more of the candidates. So I will leave a link down below to Artemis's channel, to Winterfyre's Twitter or whatever I can get from him, and also some Ethlizards links. This is going to be for Epoch 2 that's going to run 6 months, and the voting is going to take place from June 4th to June 11th. So with all that being said, Winterfyre, welcome to the channel. Take a minute, introduce yourself, tell us your background, and what brought you to Ethlizards.
Sure. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for the introduction. And so my name is Winterfyre, and in my Web2 life, I'm actually the co-founder and COO of a prop tech startup. So I've actually started investing in the TradFi space well over 15 years ago. So I did some pre-IPO placements into tech, science, and the property sectors. And I started in crypto in about 2018. So this was during the ICO boom at that point of time. And my company, we actually wanted to get into the space as well. So we did and wrote up an entire white paper on how to integrate crypto with the property sector. So as we all know, the ICO boom actually crashed after that. So we didn't actually ended up launching the project at that point of time. So I bought some ETH during that period and ended up, holding the ETH through the entire crypto winter from 2018 all the way to 2021. So I left the crypto space at that point of time, and then came back again in August 2021 when I got introduced to Illuvium through Vulcan's video, right? So I found the Illuvium Discord, jumped in, found out more a bit about the project, and right all the way at the bottom of the channels, I saw this little ILV Degen trading channel, right? So that was actually how I also got involved with the Ethlizards. So as they say, the rest is history. I was involved with the Ethlizards right from the start, before its current iteration. And I've been a holder of the Genesis Ethlizards and the V2 lizards as well since its mint.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that. I've heard a lot of stories about that chat in the Illuvium Discord. But yeah, I mean that's pretty cool that you were there from the beginning of that. I was a little later onto the Ethlizard side of things, but yeah, that's great. So now that you explained how you got there, why do you want to run for this spot? Why do you think you deserve a spot on this council?
Right. So the Ethlizards, since I've been there right from the start, it's actually a project that's very close to my heart. It was started by a group of friends of mine, and we're still in contact even today, right? We still chat on a regular basis. And personally, I do want to see the project succeed. And I'm a huge believer that the Web3 gaming space is going to be the future. So now, being a founder, I actually talk to investors all the time, and I have an insight into their evaluation process as well. And on top of that, I've been running my own company for the past 6 years and have been through the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur. So this experience actually does give me a unique edge to see from both the founders and the investors' point of view. And I do want to be able to contribute to the Ethlizards, and I think that my skill sets would be very suitable for the portfolio sub-DAO.
Let's get into some more difficult questions here, I guess. So, how are you going to approach evaluating, potential projects, and what criteria do you consider most important when making an investment decision?
Right. Okay. So the evaluation of a project itself, it really does depend on the stage that we're investing in. So for the Ethlizards, what we're looking at are mostly pre-seed and seed phases, which is pretty much very early in the life of the project itself. So that being said, I think when it comes to investments of pre-seed or seed phases, the most important criteria for me would be the founding team. So I'll take a look at things such as, does the team have the necessary experience to handle the ups and downs of running a company? We all know that markets and economies change all the time. So the team has to be very fluid. They have to be adaptable and be able to pivot according to these changes as well. Right. So some of the other things that I look at would be whether the founding team, they have worked together before. Are they already familiar with each other's working styles? And also based on their prior experiences, do they already have the network to be able to raise additional fundings, or do they have the network to know talented people where they will be able to hire them? So the most important thing is actually the founding team, because they will be the ones that will be able to guide and steer the project throughout all the different market conditions. And an idea itself for startups, right? The idea that you bring to the market, usually it's not the idea that you start off with, right? So through customer feedback, through basically all the different things that you go through when you are building up the project, you will be able to change and adapt accordingly. And I think that is very, very important. We need the team with an experience to be able to handle that. Otherwise, if the team actually sticks very firmly to what they believe initially and refuse to see the market feedback, the project's not going to go very well.
Yeah, so being able to adapt, yeah. So this is kind of like a three-part question here. What are some of the red flags that would come up when looking at these possible investments? And then also, what are some green flags, the things that you really like to see? And are there any, non-negotiables?
hmm Okay, so we'll start off with the red flags first, right? For me, the red flags, the first thing would be an undocked team. So if the team is looking to raise funds and looking to get money from the investors, but they do not want to review themselves, that's a no-go for me, right? So the team has to showcase who they are, show what kind of relevant experience that they have, and that is the first red flag. The second red flag would be the attention to detail. So when I take a look at a project, I actually take a look at every single thing that they put out in public. So things such as the terms and conditions document, the privacy policy documents. So all these different things, I take a look at them in detail, actually read through all of them as well. I'll give you an example. I've actually done research on a project before that when I take a look at their terms and conditions document and I take a look at the privacy document, they actually have different company names in these two documents, and none of the company names are related to them, right? So this could mean one of two things. It could either mean that the team actually copied and pasted these documents, and then they did not actually change the company's names. Number two, there was some legal stuff that is going around that they cannot actually review or they do not want to reveal to the public. So if the team does not get this sorted out internally, and it's basically they're not running a tight ship, and that would not be something that I would look at, right? So those are some of the red flags. The green flags would include a team with relevant experience, like I mentioned before, or if you have a project that have already secured a prominent or reputable lead investors, because this will actually showcase that these investors have done their due diligence and research onto the team, and these investors believe that this team will be able to succeed. On top of that, if you do have a lead investor, it usually signals that it's easier to raise funds in the future as well, right? So these are some of the green flags that I will look at. Now, in terms of the non-negotiable elements, one of the things that I hold very firmly is that the founders, they must have skin in the game. So the founders must have put in their own money into the project as well. I do not want us to invest into a project where all the money that the founders are using comes from investors, right? We need to ensure that the founders, if they, we want to make sure that the founders, when they run the project, they're giving their all, right? And in order to do that, they have to have put in their own money as well. So the other thing that is non-negotiable for me is that the founders must be working full-time on the project. Now, I do not want us to invest into a project where the founders are working part-time. They have other gigs going on as well. I need their full attention and focus on the project. The entire dedication has to be on the project to ensure that it succeeds. So the reason why we want to do this is because Ethlizards, we do not actually have a huge war chest like a traditional VC. So we need to make sure that we maximize and stretch our investment dollars into every single project that we put into. There's no spray and pray approach for us, and we'll need to make sure that the projects that we invest into has the highest chance of success, right? So the other thing that I also look at is the team must have planned for revenue sources. So projects, they are businesses after all, and businesses exist to make money. So they need to know how are they going to go about making money. If they haven't actually thought about it yet, they do not have their revenue projections, they don't know where their revenue are actually coming from, then I think the chances of success is it's not very high.
Fantastic answer there. So, what do you value most in a project? I know you touched on this a little already, but is it the experience that the team has, or the scope of the project itself?
So for me, as I mentioned before, the team itself actually holds a lot of weight over the scope of the project, especially in this early stage where we're going in to invest. The scope of the project can change depending on market conditions, but the team will be the one that helms and pivots the project according to the feedback that they receive. So they will need to have the emotional maturity to be able to handle all the feedback that they receive. Most of them will not be positive, right? I've been through it myself as an entrepreneur, and investors slam you all the time. Your customers slam you all the time. You need to make sure that you're able to handle that feedback and then pivot accordingly. Take a look at all the feedback that you receive. Some of them might be useful, some of them might not be useful. So filter them out, use the useful ones, and then discard the not so useful ones.
All right. So, not all potential investments will actually be Web3 games. So, how would you approach these other projects that are, close to the space, but not necessarily gaming studios?
Right. Okay. So, I mean, for Ethlizards, our main mandate when we're doing our investments is into Web3 games. So, my preference would be to invest in Web3 gaming studios or Web3 gaming projects. But I do understand that sometimes we need to extend our purview a little bit to look at other forms of projects as well. So, the methodologies that I mentioned earlier on, they can pretty much be used to evaluate these projects as well. But if they are not Web3 gaming projects, we'll need to look at other criteria, such as what kind of other benefits that they will be able to bring to the Ethlizards, whether it's for the community or for the core team, or maybe it will help us with handling our infrastructure, right? And if it does make a lot of sense, there must be something unique that they bring to the table for us to expand our scope and take a look at these projects as well.
So, what connections, if any, do you have that would support Ethlizards in their search for the best Web3 projects?
All right. So currently, I'm actually an active contributor to the DAO as well in my role as a lead liaison. So as it is, I really do have exposure, and I talk to many projects every day and evaluate them for partnerships or collabs with the Ethlizards. So in using that network in my outreach to them or for projects that reach out to us, when I do the evaluation as well, I will be able to bring the high potential ones to the rest of the council for their consideration. So on top of that, I'm also a member of the Wolfstyle, and Wolfstyle, they do have a lot of network. Their network is pretty strong. A lot of builders, a lot of founders in the space are in the Wolfstyle, and I will be able to tap on the connections that they have as well in order to reach out to the projects and to search for the best ones for the Ethlizards.
All right. So, I got another multi part question for you here. So, given that the duration of this council's term is 6 months, how do you plan to make a meaningful impact in that time frame? And what strategies will you use to maximize the DAO's growth, during this 6 months? And then, just in addition, is making an investment during this epoch a must, or could you still consider it a successful epoch if no investment was made?
Mhm. Right. So, to be honest, actually, 6 months is not a very long time. Personally, I've been involved in investment discussions that just the discussions and going back and forth on the terms of the investment itself, including the due diligence, that itself took more than 6 months, right? So, I've also heard of deals that from the start all the way to the end, it took more than a year for the investment to actually come to fruition. So 6 months is actually not a very long time. But that being said, we want to make sure that we maximize and stretch the investment dollar of the DAO. So we will actually have to approach every potential investment with due consideration and diligence as well. We'll need to speed it up a little bit, right? But we will need to make sure that this diligence has actually been done on the projects. So if you think about it, I don't think that we'll try our best, of course, to evaluate all potential investments. But if at the end of the 6 months epoch, there isn't an investment that we go into, I do not actually consider it a failure or not a successful epoch. The reason being, we actually want to invest only in the highest potential projects. If we really cannot find any projects during that 6 months period, I'd rather us have the funds, we keep the funds, and then the next council, they will have these bullets to be able to invest and fire during the next epoch when they actually have find a better higher potential project for us to invest in. We need to make sure that the returns on our investment are worth the deployment and the locking up of our funds.
So, are there any potential conflicts of interest that you may have that may affect your ability to make decisions for this council?
Yeah, so just a very small one. Because of my role as a lead liaison handling partnerships, there might be some potential conflicts because I do need to foster good relations with the people in other projects as well. So, if they approach us for an investment and we reject them, it might not reflect very well. However, I do think that this is a very small issue because I've actually dealt with projects that have approached us for investment after we have actually collabed or partnered with them and we rejected them, right? So it did not actually affect the partnership or the collab. In fact, they actually gave us more allocations subsequently as well. So there might be some potential conflicts of interest, but I think it's a really very, very small one.
Coming to the conclusion of this interview here, what are your final thoughts on this? What makes you the best candidate? Why should people vote for you?
All right. So again, I have the experience to be able to see and evaluate projects from both a founder's and investor's point of view. So I think that gives me a unique edge. So I basically know what a founder actually goes through when they're running the company. And for investors, I know what they're looking at, what criteria they're actually setting. So I'm able to evaluate from both sides of the picture. So final words, I do want to take the time to actually thank you, Nick, for taking the time to actually have all these interviews with not just myself, but the rest of the council members as well. So for the community that will be looking at this video, thank you for taking the time. This epoch is going to be the very first epoch of the portfolio shutdown, and we need to make sure that we build a very strong foundation for future councils that will be coming on board as well. The future of Ethlizards is very bright, and I cannot be more excited.
Yeah, hey, I'm just as excited as you. I've got a small little bag of Ethlizards, and I'm excited to see what this council can do. With that being said, just to reiterate a couple things, uh, the the voting for this is going to take place June 4th to June 11th. So coming out in about a week now. I'll have more of these interviews on this channel. Artemis will have some interviews on her channel. And yeah, we're all excited to see what happens with this and, get the voting over with. But thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts. And this is definitely going to give, the community a better idea of what you bring to the table.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.